Hey, Brian, you know me as a man of the working class.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm not one of these California elites with like health insurance and car insurance. I don't have any insurance. But when it comes to audio, I have a very discerning ear, as do you.
Oh, of course.
So one question I have is, can you actually mix professional music on headphones?
Yes. But.
Yes, but you say.
Yes.
Okay.
But there are a few small tweaks that you can make to make your life a whole lot easier and make the mixes translate a whole lot better.
Okay. This is Brian Lee White, by the way. CEO of Finishing Move Inc. Do a bunch of video game soundtrack composing. The best ears in the business, as they say.
They are ears in the business.
So Halo games, Microsoft Flight Sim, a big game coming out that we can't talk about yet, but we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
I bet. So you wanna get us hip to best practices?
First explain this amazing pair of headphones
so the
that
reason
you brought over.
So Sweetwater has sent me the Audeze LCDx's. So these are by far the nicest headphones I've ever had. And you're an Audeze man.
Yeah,
right?
LCD-5s.
I've always known you as Odysseus.
Okay.
Odysseus. Just fighting back the sirens.
Yeah.
All right, so you have the LCD-5s.
Yes.
Which are the bougiest headphones known to man.
They're their flagships.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are $5,000 headphones almost.
About that, yeah.
Yeah. These are like around $1,200.
Okay.
Which a lot of people be like, that's an insane amount from headphones if you're used to that kind of
For
thing.
sure, yeah.
You know.
These are planar magnetic headphones. All the Audeze headphones are. And what makes these good specifically for what we're going to do for mixing through headphones is that the planars have a lot of detail. So you're going to get all the low lows and the high highs. But they also take EQ really well. And that's going to be part of our workflow where we're going to actually adjust the EQ of the sound that we're hearing through the headphones to help us mix a little bit better. And the planars, they just have really low distortion. And so they can take EQ curves versus some of the dynamic headphones, even though they sound great. I have a bunch of pairs of Sennheisers and stuff like that. When you start EQing them, they start distorting really fast. And so it kind of makes them difficult to do what we're going to do with the Harman curve.
Okay. That sounds impressive.
The
Harman curve.
The Harman curve.
That's great.
So really the biggest issue with mixing on headphones is that if you're going to listen to that back on those same headphones or any headphones, it's great, right? It should translate fairly well. A lot of people listen to music on headphones. The problem is when you try to translate to speakers, when we listen on headphones, our ear, we're getting the left side and the right side exclusively. When you listen on speakers, they combine in the room. So your left ear is hearing a little bit of the right speaker occluded by your head.
Right.
And, vice versa.
Okay.
Right? So your left speaker, you're going to hear a little bit. It's like if you've ever, you can just sit in your room, play some speakers and cover that ear. You can still hear both speakers.
Huh.
And so that cross population in the room, what that does is it creates a phantom center that sits a little bit further in front of you. So what you're getting is essentially, it's almost like the vocalist is you can reach out and touch them. On a headphone, when it goes into your left and right ear, you don't have that crossfeed. And so it sounds kind of more like the person is inside your head.
Unless it's classic Bruce Springsteen mixes.
Sure.
Okay.
Mono mix or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, so why is that a problem? Why is that not cool? It's not a problem in as such is when you start setting balance levels of those center channel elements. So your snare drum, your kick drum, your vocal, all the super important stuff. Mm-hmm. You may either over or under cook it depending on just how your ears work or the headphones.
And then when you play it back in your car or something like that, it's like, well, this isn't at all what I thought it sounded.
Exactly. Like your snare is too loud all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, like, what's going on?
Okay.
So the first thing that we can do to kind of help our mixes translate better on headphones is use something called a crossfeed circuit. And I've got one set up here.
Okay, and just real quick, so you don't need super high-end headphones to use these.
You can do these tricks that we're going to show you. You can do these tricks with any of your headphones.
Great.
It's just that basically the sky's the limit. The more expensive the headphone, the more fidelity you're going to get and the more you can hear into your mix. But these will help any pair of headphones translate better.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. Well, let's check out what you got here.
So what I've got here is a crossfeed circuit. There's a few different plugins that do this. I like this Goodhertz can opener. There's even some tutorials out there on YouTube on how to just make one of these with an equalizer. Like,
oh, really?
Just for free in your DAW. We won't get into that sort of complexity. I'm a big fan of just like a simple plugin that does it.
Cool.
And what this is basically doing is it's, to simply describe it, is taking some of the left and put it into the right, taking some of the right and put it into the left, so with a bit of equalization.
A speaker simulator, so to speak.
It's simulating how speakers would crossfeed, but let's not confuse it with an actual speaker simulator in that this isn't one of those things that's adding reverb. Okay, it's not adding like...
It's not a room simulator.
It's not a room simulator. And I know that you've probably heard of a lot of different like, oh, put these headphones on and you're in this studio.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big fan of those because they do so much to the signal that now you're wondering, what am I hearing? Am I hearing this plugin that's simulating a room and a reverb and a bunch of like different filtering, or am I actually hearing the guitar that I'm EQing? And the further steps you get away from what you're actually working on, the more confusing it can be. Some people get good results on them. I like to keep it simple. This just puts a little crossfeed between your left and right ears, and you can kind of adjust it. The best way to do it is put on something you're really familiar with. You're really familiar with the center channels, like the snare and the vocal and stuff like that, how loud you want them to be.
Okay.
And then adjust the amount and the angle. And that's really it, right?
Okay.
You just turn it on. And this thing's great. It'll volume compensate, so you can turn it off and on, and it kind of sounds the same. And by the way, this is on my final output of my mix.
So this is on the master bus.
On the master bus after all my processing.
Okay.
After any limiter. I'm using it in my monitoring chain in Reaper. A lot of DAWs have like a separate monitoring kind of plugin list. If you don't, like you're using Pro Tools or using Logic, just make sure you disable these plugins before you bounce the mix out. Because you don't want these to apply to
go through it, yeah.
Yeah, these are just for listening, for mixing.
Cool.
The second part of this is an equalizer. And this is a custom equalizer setup that I have for my LCD-5s. What this is doing is it's getting me close to what's called a Harman curve. A Harman curve, you can kind of look it up. There's been a ton of research on this. It's essentially trying to simulate what speakers sound like in a room. And so you're getting a little bit more low-end response. You're getting some more top-end. Every headphone has a different relationship to Harman. Mm-hmm. And so basically you need to know where your starting point is with your headphone to get it closer to Harman. And this is where this website comes in. You can make an EQ for anything, and we're going to make one right now for the LCDx. So I'm going to just go in here. This is autoeq.app. It's free.
Oh my
LCDx.
Gosh.
And you could type in anything. Like if I was looking at, some Sennheiser stuff, like
they just got everything on there, huh?
Boom. Yeah. So these are all measurements of these headphones that have been made by people in the community. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide all of this stuff real quick.
Okay.
This is the raw sort of measured response of these headphones.
Okay.
The LCDx. As you can see, it's very flat through the lows and the low mids. And then we get a little spice there. I know people look at this and like, oh my God, what's it? This is not accurate. Once you get past like 1K, stuff starts to look like this on speakers, on headphones, and everything like that. What we want to do is we want to get close to this target, which is the Harman target. And you can see, in order for us to get there for these headphones, we're going to have to get a little more low end. We're going to have some recess in the mids here, and we're probably going to push this sort of section up a bit. Now, a lot of people, what they'll try to do with this app is they'll try to match this curve exactly. Bad idea, because what happens is if you try to use 1,000 EQ points to remove all these little dips and valleys and peaks and stuff like that, you get a ton of phase shift, and now you're not actually hearing your mix, you're hearing an equalizer.
Okay. All right.
And so the trick, and this will work for any headphone, type it in, do this. So I'm looking at the raw, I'm looking at the target. I'll add the equalized. We haven't done any equalization yet. We're going to go here We're going to choose parametric EQ because we just want to use any EQ in our DAW, any stock
Especially
parametric.
if you haven't upgraded to Pro Q4 yet.
If you haven't upgraded Pro Q4 yet. And so what I'm going to do is you can see it added an equalized one now. When I hide the raw, it's added an equalized version. And it's giving me, essentially, this is what, 5-band recommendation right here. And that is going to get us close to our target.
Cool. So then you just go back to your plugin, your EQ plugin.
And so if you want to do the basic version, like where you're like, hey man, I don't want to tweak. I'm not a tweaker. I just want to take this. All you got to do, take these, go plug them into any, like we could go plug these into, let's just go the stock Mac EQ. I think that's AU EQ.
Oh man,
the
I don't know if I've seen this one.
This just comes with every
I see. Okay.
Apple, right?
Yeah.
And we can go and say, oh, we're going to use 5 bands. We can go take a look here. So the first one that we saw was a low shelf at 105 with a Q of 0.7 and a gain of 3.7. So I can just type all those in. We don't need to type all these in. People get it, right? And if you set all this up, even just sometimes I just use the Harman and I don't use the crossfeed. You know, depending on the headphones, some headphones don't need as much crossfeed. This, if I can start mixes on this, and when I switch to speakers, I am not surprised. I'm not like, whoa, what's happening? And it's something you get used to. You definitely get used to having more bass like that, and a bit of the recessed mids, but it definitely, from the get-go, for most people, it's like, oh, okay, this feels a lot better. Now, the more your headphones kind of go away from this, the more you have to EQ them, the more that could cause problems. That's why I really love these Audezies, is that they're really flat and they're the planars, and I can do like 4 bands of EQ really gentle and get them sort of spot on without doing stuff. You see some of these other headphones that are more designed like closebacks, more designed for tracking. They can have like pretty wild peaks in the upper range, or in like the bass could be boosted by 12 dB and stuff like that. EQing those starts to get kind of dicey, where like you start to hear the EQ and it starts to kind of distort the drivers.
Okay. And Audeze does make closed-back ones also. I do think that these, for the price point, is like a more accessible entryway into something very high-end.
100%. So if we were just going to talk about the difference, you know, in terms of
between $5,000 and $1,200.
Yeah,
headphones.
so it's not 5x. Like, I'm not getting 5x the performance out of these. Okay. I'm probably getting 5 to 10% more performance.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The more once you start spending over $1,000 on headphones, it's diminishing returns. Okay. Right? So you start getting into incremental.
That's always an interesting question for anything with like gear.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like same with guitars, right?
For sure.
Once you hit that like well-made guitar.
Yeah, I feel like for me, like an acoustic guitar, like a Martin D18, like that's like your standard, like it's a great guitar. Anything more than that is like, okay, it's like, it looks different. It might be like a little better.
Yeah, like these have custom wood. These are like hand-carved wood.
Yeah, and there's something to be said of something that like, there's like the craftsmanship and art that goes into something really high-end. But I think a lot of people, they want to know what their dollar for dollar best value is.
Yeah, and I think that LCDx from the Audeze line, or the Man American, the MM500s, I think they're around the same.
Yeah, like maybe like $400 or $500 more, I think. Yeah.
And those, interesting enough, the curve on those is a little bit more Harman from the get go. So these are things that you could listen to. There's different people have different preferences, and what you definitely want to do is you want to create a comfort level. And don't be afraid to adjust some of the EQ or the crossfeed to make it sound like how your speakers sound. Because it's all about, like, what do you expect? And what do you expect when you go to different environments? Everybody has different ears. Some people have hearing loss in different frequencies that you might want to compensate for in an EQ. You know, if you've been to the audiologist and you've got a map of... You can even do that with the Apple earbuds now, the little AirPod Pro 2s. You can do a hearing test.
Oh, really?
And it'll show you, like, yeah, bro, you've lost, like, a lot of hearing at 5K.
I'm afraid to take that.
you should take it. Yeah, it was fun. Like, in the health app, you can open up and it'll just show you,
interesting,
like, what, you know, how your hearing is. And you can, you know, obviously do with that information what you want. But if you've always suspected, like, man, like, I don't know, like, I feel like I'm not hearing, you know, stuff at 3K or 5K. It's like, you might not be, and you might need to compensate for that.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, for sure.
And headphones is a great way, because it's just, you know, it's a personal thing. You're not like tweaking your speakers for that.
Cool.
But yeah,
these are great tips. So just, you know, get the crosstalk settled.
Crossfeed.
Get the Harman curve set.
Get your experiment
liking.
with the Harman curve to your liking. Use that autoeq app. There's a bunch of tutorials out there on YouTube where people spend an hour telling you exactly how to do all that.
Can we really quick? So your listening setup in here, you've got the Amphion monitors,
Amphions,
right?
Yeah.
And then how much? So when you're mixing like a project, like how often are you going back and forth between your monitor setup and your headphone setup?
It's weird. Sometimes I'll start on headphones just because I'm feeling that day. Sometimes I'll start on speakers. It's just a different perspective. And then I'll switch to headphones. I have a few different pairs of headphones.
Right, I've noticed.
I've spent a lot of money on headphones, and those just give me a different perspective. Like maybe it's a different perspective on the low end, the high end, the stereo field, just different checks. You know, if I had to just mix on headphones, I definitely could get a really good mix. The big Amphions are fun because I can turn them up and I can push SPL and I can really hear loud music and it's inspiring to work. But I mean, I don't, you know, it's a luxury. And if there's like construction or something going on, it's like,
listen, hey, I'm a blue collar man.
I know, exactly.
I'm not used to those luxuries. This is all I need. This is
just a blue collar man with a $1,200 pair of headphones.
That's right. No insurance.
No insurance.
People think I'm joking. You know, I'm not joking about that. I really don't have.
Well, you have car insurance because it's the law.
I do have car insurance.
So, but health insurance, I would encourage you to get.
Anyways, thanks for watching. Thank you to Sweetwater for sending these headphones over. And if you have any more questions for the master here, let us know in the comments, and we'll talk to you soon.